Welcome back to Ash and Knowles Minis. My name is Osling, but you can call me Ash. And we're going to do things a little bit differently today. I'm starting this project with a field trip to Pioneer Park in Fairbanks, Alaska, also known as Alaska Land. During the summer, a lot of these historic buildings are filled with little shops and things to do, but all year round it's a great place to go for a walk and get some fresh air. So I'm here with my soon-to-be roommate and her dog Sierra, taking a stroll, but also going to visit my favorite house. And there she is. Alright, so it is all of 25 degrees above zero, and I have just run around like a maniac, taking measurements and reference photos of the Kitty Hensley House. I think it's super cute. It's always been one of my favorites. I especially love up here the shingle details. I'm gonna try to recreate it. I'm gonna try to do it super fast. I don't know. Maybe I can get it done in a week. Maybe if I'm super manic, I can get it done in a couple of days. And I was not able to get any pictures of the kitchen extension in the back. But we'll see what we can find online. And it should be fun. It's time to get cozy and have some tea. Maybe clean up a little bit. Haha! Jumping ahead, I converted all of my measurements to 1/48 scale in centimeters and used that to draw up a scale-accurate floor plan. I took a measurement of how tall the first story was, doubled it, and then kind of eyeballed the shape of the front of the building. And this is going to be my pattern piece for the front and back. Always label things. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't labeled things. So I know that the bottom point of my roof shape is how tall the bottom story is. So I'm kind of using that to cheat. I don't want to have to measure things if I don't have to. But I'm using the area around my floor plan to cut out some more pattern pieces for the walls. And like I said before, label everything. I'm going to make a base using this chipboard, hardboard thing. It's the back of a cheap picture frame. I'm just kind of tracing where I want the floor plan to sit and then kind of eyeballing what I want to provide as far as some landscaping. I can do a lot, but a little bit. Cutting it out, I'm using a sharp craft knife and going over my cut lines very carefully a couple of times and then snapping it, because I'm impatient and this does not need to be a pretty smooth line. Like, yeah. And I'm just gonna repeat this, working my way around the landscaping, just kind of cutting and snapping off pieces. So not only do we have our landscaping base, but I also made one in the shape of the floor plan. I added a little bump out in the shape of the porch, and it will sit like so. That back bump out is totally eyeballed, but it's the kitchen. This piece is actually the back of a pad of paper. It's easier to cut out, and it'll be plenty sturdy for this smaller construction. I am going to be very careful when cutting this out, because I do want these to be smooth, even lines. And I'm going to tell you to use a straight edge. I mean, do what I say, not what I do. Yeah, so I'm going to eyeball my way through cutting these out, but I think it works. And again, label everything. And then I'm going to repeat this with the remainder of my pattern pieces,
because, you know, I need pieces for all of my walls. So this next step is one that I've actually never done before, but I'm going to do a dry fit, just kind of tape all the pieces together and verify that they actually fit the way I want them to. It really is helpful, and I really should do it more often. And then I'm gonna eyeball some more stuff, because I obviously didn't need to take measurements of the door, but I'm referencing a picture of the house and kind of making sure that the proportions are correct. It'll be fine. And eyeballing some windows that I definitely did take measurements of, but apparently I'm feeling lazy, and yeah. Now I gotta say, I am pretty happy with how this is turning out. I'm gonna add a piece that will eventually be the floor / ceiling, that bit in the middle. I'm cutting out the little area where the stairwell will be, and then start cutting out some window holes. So choosing cardboard as my construction medium is totally fine, except I'm gonna have to paint these pieces, and I don't want to warp anything. So I'm going to prime these using Ultra Matte Medium from Liquitex, which is going to create an acrylic, so basically plastic barrier to the pieces, as well as filling in some of that toothy surface so that the paint lays on it a little bit nicer. I decided to have a little bit of fun with this part, and instead of leaving an entire wall off of the building so that you can see the inner workings, I decided to just cut a hole out. So the wall will still be there, the window will still be represented, but you'll be able to see inside a little bit better. The stairs were quite the thing. I did eyeball a lot of this using a reference photo I found online for the interior of this house, but it'll go together as a little box, and once I have that together, I can start adding the actual stair steps. Most of these were unique shapes, so I did have to individually kind of figure out each one, cut it out, and glue it in, instead of creating an easy template. Easy templates would be awesome, but I'm not that way. Yeah, so I totally forgot until now that the little bump out in the front of the house needs a hole cut in the front of the house so you can see the windows. Yeah, so I did that, and I'm doing my first coat of paint. I'm using Liquitex because I am a Liquitex girl. Love this stuff. And I'm definitely not gonna leave my brushes sitting in my water this time. And now for the yarn bit. I know, this probably doesn't make any sense. It will, trust me. And now, after about, honestly, probably 8 hours, I need to call it quits for the night. And that lovely, clean, beautiful workspace is a heckin' disaster. Again.
Welcome to day 2 of the speed build of the Kitty Hensley House. I got a lot done yesterday. I got all of the walls cut out and painted, and built some stairs. These
are terrifying. I was originally only going to do the bottom, 4 or 5 that you might be able to see through the windows, and then I was just going to put a board going up the rest of the way, and I went to put the board in. I couldn't do it, you guys. So, even though the run is not correct, I should have traced this line down to get the proper run of the stairs. They're at least there, and I feel better about it. The stairs in that house are ridiculously steep. They're there, and it makes me feel better. And I've pre-painted them because I'm going to be flocking this instead of putting fabric on. The original stairs are carpeted. Okay, so I have a rooster living in my garage. It's fine, don't worry about it. Instead of carpeting, I'm going to be flocking them. I made the flocking with scraps of green yarn that I have from the end of a project. This is my test piece. It's all fuzzy now. I'm fairly happy with it. I sat and watched like 5 episodes of Star Trek Original Remastered on Amazon Prime and tried to make a powder out of yarn. It's gonna work, I think. It'll be fine. So yeah, first I'm going to be flocking, and then I'm going to try to paint the details on my interior walls. So yes, let's get to it.
I told you that little yarn bit would make sense. I'm going in with a ton of tacky glue and working it into every single nook and cranny, because once you've added the flocking, you can't really patch it. It looks awful if you try. So, glue, and then I'm going to cover it with flocking and kind of flounce it in with a little brush and set it to dry. I know, I did this off screen, I'm sorry. I really eyeballed these shapes, so there was not really any sort of measuring or anything fancy involved. These are going to represent the paneling in the back of the stairs. Just kind of checking to see if they will actually fit. And I just used a heavy cardstock to make those. I also used some really thin cardboard to make these pillars for around the stairs. The molding at the top is just several little rectangles glued together. I made one that's actually 3D for the front banister. I glued the little bits around a Q-tip. And I'm using Gloss Super Heavy Gel from Liquitex. Once again, priming the surface so that the tooth gets filled in, but it also works kind of like a caulking and fills in all of the corners and just kind of melds everything together, so it looks a little bit less like little bits of cardboard glued together. So now that I have my paper paneling pieces glued in place, I'm gonna double check, and I think it looks super seamless and super cute. Everything's lined up correctly, and I'm gonna prime these with the same heavy gel medium from Liquitex. It fills in the corners just a tiny bit, so the join isn't super obvious, and I think it gives for a really smooth, even, beautiful presentation, as well as priming the paper so that the paint sits on top very nicely. This bit. So, the interior of the house is wallpapered. The wallpaper is beautiful. The wallpaper is intricate. And painting it has killed my hands. I don't normally draw anymore or do any sort of painting that requires this kind of precision work. But this is the way I decided to go with this project. I could have just left it cream, but instead I spent hours painting teeny tiny ovals and teeny tiny little double lines in between the rows of ovals. And yeah. I hope you enjoyed this first few steps in the speed build of the Kitty Hensley house. After all of this, I'm just going to throw a quick black base on the floor plan piece and let my hands rest.